Oh, look, for me now, I look back and think, oh my God, how could I have taught without being certified? But my teacher was saying to me, oh, it doesn't matter. She didn't mind and it wasn't an issue. But now for me, I say with everything, especially anything, even remotely to do with Tantra, you want to be certified in, fully initiated into it. It's a different thing. It's a specific process when you go through a training. Uh, and I see it in that first experience in a yoga teacher training. You step up on a different level. So you're there, you're dedicating your time. And I say this to my trainees as well. You can't do it at the same time as having everything else. So you can't do a teacher training and expect to hang on to the life that you are currently leading, whether it's your work life, your family life, whether it is conditioned states of mind that you're wanting to keep the same. You can't. You've got to give something up. You have to create space for it. And when you create space for a training in your life, if that means you've got to fly to India for a month, or you've got to give up 3 hours of your week, if it's something different, in creating that space, you are saying, like, I'm ready for this. I'm willing to give something up to create something new in my life. And I suppose that that's really important if you're somebody who's creating a teacher training, that you ensure that people have to in some way commit. That commitment is a really important thing in being a spiritual teacher, because honestly, there are very few people in the industry who are able to commit to things. It is part of the nature of the kind of work that I do, where people are flaky and they bypass having to have integrity. And I think that when you step into a dedicated spiritual training, you have to focus yourself in a certain way. And it brings with it so many revelations. So for me, doing that teacher training made me step up. It gave me a focused space to look at my spiritual world that wasn't distracted by my other career and my emotional world and my relationships. And I was able to go into retreat. But also, I have to say that it was the techniques themselves that were so awakening for me, because I was really learning the pranayama. This was probably the biggest one. I had a really strong asana practice. I had a really strong meditation practice. I'd been doing both for 12, 15 years already by then. But what really shifted for me was learning about pranayama and also learning about the yogic philosophy. I am naturally quite an academic person and I love learning and I love philosophy, and I love working with ideas. And both of those things were a massive revelation when I'd been taught that um, it was 99% practice and kind of 1%. I don't know what the other 1% was meant to be. Like, you're in your mind 1% of the time, and the rest of the time you're in your body practicing. And it was this huge thing to go, wow, there are all these books and texts, and there's so much to learn. And also I have this energy body that I kind of have felt in my meditations, but now I can control my energy and I can shift my moods through pranayama, and I can kind of change my world like that in 2 minutes. My entire internal experience can shift. So for me, it was definitely that dedication and stepping up, but it was most certainly also the practices that I was taught. And I was lucky enough to be taught practices, I suppose, that are quite tantric in nature, the pranayama practices. And the interesting thing that I found when I left was that nobody else was really teaching them. And so I was so blown away by them and so annoyed that nobody else had taught them to me, that it just became part of my teaching vocabulary that I had to teach this work. So I'd be teaching a yoga class, but I'd be sliding in pranayama wherever I could. And people were coming out of the classes loving that work. I mean, to be honest as well, I have to say mantra also was revealed to me, where like I'd always been so self-conscious and like cringy with mantra, like, oh, devotional singing, like, oh, Hare Krishna vibe, that kind of thing. And it made me really step out of that. And I found the power of mantras as well. And I would bring them into my classes because I felt as though nobody had taught it to me before. And I think that it probably wasn't part of their trainings. I think that I got lucky with my particular training. And I think that it was probably a case of the right timing, and also maybe a sense of inner confidence that I had that maybe other teachers at the time didn't have as much of in my surroundings. So I felt really free to teach the work that I loved and that had changed me. Yeah. And from there, I suppose, I don't know whether you want to go back to that question about teachers and a bit about that devotional thing. But I mean, I've had, I suppose in my life, some students have the great fortune to just have one teacher and they follow that singular path and that's it, which I think is like such a gift. And then there are other people like me and other people around the world who have many teachers, which I also think is a great gift too, because I feel as though I'm opened up to a lot of different ideas. And so for me, some of the teachers that I've had have been physical in person. I had a Tantra teacher who I met in India, and I worked with him for 2.5 or so years. And I learned a lot, but I had to release from that relationship. And that happens in the world of Tantra. There's a lot of just really poor conduct that goes on. It's a messy, messy, messy world. So you have to be so careful of anyone who calls themselves a Tantra teacher, even though sometimes I say that about myself. You have to be really, really careful calling yourself that. And you have to be really careful going to teachers who say that that's what they are. There's just so much messiness in that world. And I guess I was lucky to be able to step out of that relationship relatively unscathed, which was good. And I've had other teachers, and a lot of them have let me down. And I have had to find a way through devotion and critical thinking and being a woman, and find teachers who I admire and find a way through doing this work. Because at the end of the day, the people who are teaching are not necessarily gurus, because the true guru is an enlightened being who incarnates back in human form, chooses to come back to the physical plane so that they can enlighten as many people as possible. In Buddhism, this would be like the bodhisattva. In yoga, this is the guru. And most people are just humans out there who have gone deep into their practice, have got great teachings. Often they're very charismatic, and they're humans figuring their stuff out. And a lot of times getting caught up in power and ego along the way and hurting their students. And so working with teachers, I think nowadays you have to go in with this balance of both critical mindset and also a sense of intuitive trust and devotion, so that intuition is guiding you. And when it feels off, listen to it, talk to the teacher, feel into it, and have a sense that you don't necessarily have to stay with someone. Or if you hear that a teacher has, maybe done something wrong, or has done something that you feel is out of alignment, then you don't have to stay with that person. There should never be any sense that there is a commitment that is unbreakable. And this could just be on a very small level, where I remember a teacher in India that I had joined a course with, and he kept making fun of students who would ask questions. He had this whole thing of, ask me anything, you can ask me whatever you want. And then a student would ask a question and he'd make them feel really small. And it felt so icky in my body and I couldn't figure it out. I was about 21 at the time. And I realized what was going on and I stepped away. I felt so light in my body once I'd left him as a teacher. And there should always be that permission to leave if necessary. And it can be worse. Like the misdeeds can be much, much worse, especially in the world of tantra. But I have found my way through it, and I have continued to teach the things that have really shifted me, because so often people have incredible techniques and teachings there that we don't want to be lost. And the only way to heal this tradition is by teaching them in a way that is healthy, and by being a kind of as clear a channel as possible, and leaving yourself outside of the room and not bringing your mess into it, and not using your teachings as your own process. I think all of those things help to heal the lineage. If you're present and you're doing the work and you have your sadhana as a teacher, then you can show up and gift these incredible techniques to other people, and they're not heavy with the burdens of previous teachers' misdeeds in a way. But apart from that, I have had really positive experiences with teachers, and I tend now to work more with female teachers. It is an easier relationship, I found, and I really try and listen to my gut when it comes to following teachers. But some of the teachers that I have had who I really trust aren't always ones that I've worked with in person. So I would still consider teachers like Ram Dass and Eckhart Tolle and Christopher Harish Wallace, who I only know from their online teachings and from their books, as being a really important part of my life as a practitioner. And I still see them as my teachers, even though I haven't had the good fortune of being in any of their presence physically.